Von Miller and Kaiir Elam, Luka, are having, I think, by most people's accounts, very productive training camps. Von Miller, the first day pads were on, really took it to Spencer Brown. He also had some juice at the I don't want to say the blue and red scrimmage. It was Sunday. It was today, Sunday that we're recording. He didn't really do much at the blue and red scrimmage. Von Miller had multiple people saying vintage Von Miller. Deion Dawkins said Von Miller is back. And, I don't necessarily think we're going to get back to what we saw in 2022, where he was getting like a sack a game with the Bills until he got hurt in Detroit. But both of these guys, to varying degrees, are guys that the fan base at large, you never have a universal and 100% opinion, but the fan base at large had somewhat given up on. And for Von Miller, it's age, it's too many injuries, it's, oh my God, you're so overpaid, which is really unfair when you think about like what happened injury-wise and how long we took to evaluate him coming off of that injury. And then Kaiir Elam is the first-round pick that the Bills traded up for in a draft that's already produced one of the best cornerbacks in the sport that the Chiefs got ahead of the Bills. And, there's some cornerbacks behind him, like Tariq Woolen, who have been fantastic. A little lesser last year. It's not the point, but Kaiir Elam's really had a hard time just getting on the field and, losing snaps, being inactive for someone like Xavier Rhodes, who was brought in off the street like a week before. Now Dane Jackson is gone. Kaiir Elam's trying to win that backup boundary job. And Luka, every single day, it feels like you're hearing about Kaiir Elam making plays against the ones, intercepting Josh Allen multiple times in these camps, having an interception against Josh Allen in the blue and red scrimmage, to the point now that the people who are really clued into this team, the beat reporters that you really go to for information, not speculation, are thinking it's not just about Kaiir Elam making this team. It's not just about Kaiir Elam being active on game day. Are we inching toward a world where Kaiir Elam actually rotates in for Benford for a drive or for Douglas for a drive just to keep him ramped up when the games actually count, like against the Cardinals, against the Dolphins? I don't want to just say, take everything I just said and go, Luka, because I talked about Von Miller and Kaiir Elam. I'm going to phrase it this way. Which one of these guys are you personally most intrigued by?
I think the answer is Von, only because his path to playing is exactly where it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's still very prevalent. And I think this team desperately still needs that closer of a pass rusher. And the hope is, like you said, we don't necessarily need, we do need, it would be incredible to get back to a sack per game pace, but it's not an expectation or realistic one to be there for Von. But there's going to come a handful of games this season, and then of course during the playoffs, where you need that closeout edge presence to get to the quarterback, to force whatever mistake or force the sack to happen, if it is that, and close out games. And the path to play is there for Von. Whereas with Kaiir, it's not as clear. It's, as you brought it up, all of a sudden it's being suggested now, will he find himself in a rotation with Benford and Douglas? And my answer to that is, that's not something that the Bills have really done since going back to Kaiir's rookie year, where they were just like, okay, Christian Benford, one series, Kaiir Elam, one series, back to Benford, another series, like so on and so forth, just because they were playing out who's going to win this thing. And then, long story short, of course, Christian Benford won it. So it's just, I don't see how all of a sudden McDermott's just, I don't see how you can keep someone as hot as the way it sounds like he is right now off the field. But I don't see how, as we talked about with preseason, availability and snap count and all that, how McDermott's going to all of a sudden magically change his ways and be like, okay, we're going to now go into rotation. And then how do you tell Rasul Douglas, hey, you're going to have to sit down this drive, even though you've been outstanding for us, because we need to make sure Kaiir gets his drive. Like, Rasul's not going to want to hear that. And I don't think Benford's going to want to hear that, because that is just a little inkling that your job's not as secure as it felt. And you think you're better than them, because realistically, you probably deserve to feel that way, since you had a very successful go last season, when you were on a field in competitive games. So I I'm excited to hear about Kaiir not being, let's call it a waste, or a missed first round pick. It's extremely exciting, and I love the positive things that are coming out about Kaiir Elam. That makes me happy that there is something there, and maybe that switch is flipping in front of us. That's fantastic. But currently, where it stands, that I just don't see how McDermott should ultimately change things too much with those corners, because right now with this defense, Josh, those boundary corners and the linebacker situation are probably your most secure, safe spots on that defense, all things considered. I mean, D line is safe in the sense of exactly who it is and you know what you're getting out of it. But I'm not saying it's safe in like I expect great things out of it. Whereas Terrell Bernard, Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford, all of those guys I know are going to go out week in, week out, as long as they're healthy and provide you excellent play. And I don't, and obviously when it comes to Benford and Rasul Douglas, how are you getting Elam into that equation? I think Elam will absolutely see the field. He'll be active on game days and he'll see the field based on certain packages you're putting out there and stuff. Like there will be moments that he's needed. But overall, unless it's an injury, I don't forecast how he gets regular game time. So going to your question, it's like I'm more excited or interested in Vaughn because the path to playing is quite simple. It's what it always has been with a McDermott Bills. It's in the rotation, and he's kind of looked at as that 1A pass rush specialist on this team. It's him and Epinesa right now. So realistically, if he's progressing at a great level, that's fantastic. Because if we can get 80% of 2022 Von Miller pre-injury, that is a hell of a lot. That's 10,000 times better than any edge rusher we had last season outside of Epinesa week 5 in London. That's basically what it comes down to. So I'm definitely leaning towards Vaughn to answer your question.
I'm with you. The path there to impact a team in a greater way is there for Vaughn, because even if Kaiir Elam becomes a starting caliber cornerback, he's not better than what they already have. And rotating a cornerback doesn't present you the same advantages that rotating defensive linemen does. So from that standpoint, it's clearly Vaughn. I do think maybe the sweet spot for Vaughn is you're just like a nickel dime. Well, they're nickel defense all the time, but like a third down pass rush specialist. Like if it's a short yardage situation, let's let Epinesa go out there and do the dirty work. And let's let Vaughn just rush the passer. He's excellent at it, and maybe he's earned that in his career. As far as Kaiir Elam goes, and you mentioned Benford, it's funny because the one way he can get on the field is Benford has been a guy that's missed some games. He's missed, let me look it up here. He's missed 7 games or 8 games or 7 games in 2022. And then he missed 2 regular season games and at least 1 playoff game in 2023. I don't remember if he missed the Chiefs game or not. But it's almost like Benford went from day 3 pick to like, whoa, who's this guy? To like now he's graduated to the point that he is just excellent and we don't even talk about it anymore. Because by all accounts at camp, he's been locked down. Nobody's getting open on him. The only time you ever see him giving up catches is when it's like Keon Coleman with great coverage by Benford manages to pull a ball away in traffic. And it's like, okay, I can live with that.
Yeah.
If you're gonna,
this guy made a spectacular play over him.
Right.
Okay.
so he's not Antonio Cromartie at the catch point.
Darn.
Got it. Okay. But he's there. Like he doesn't get beat. He's so technically sound. And people at camp are just saying that he is their best cornerback. And that includes Rasul Douglas, who's been excellent for this team. Rasul Douglas has gotten beat a couple times by these guys, but Benford is just, I think there's a realistic possibility that by the end of this season, Christian Benford is viewed as maybe the best player on this defense. He doesn't say a lot. Ooh. He's not overly flashy. A lot has to go into that because Matt Milano is pretty damn good. Taron Johnson is pretty damn good, but Christian Benford, no offense to either one of those guys, plays a more important position. And if he's great at his position, that's going to mean more than even Taron Johnson and to a lesser extent, Matt Milano, because as much as we like Matt Milano, linebackers are linebackers. If they're not rushing the passer, for the most part, there's a cap to how much impact a coverage linebacker is going to have on a team. So I have no interest in taking Christian Benford off the field just to keep Kaiir Elam lathered up. If you want to take Rasul Douglas off here and there just because he's 29 years old, and you want to keep him fresh, and that's where I would do it. But I also think, realistically speaking, it's a 17 game season. Elam will play. And the Bills had the luxury the last couple of years of having Dane Jackson ready to go, a starting level cornerback to come off the bench. Hopefully they have that again this year in Elam, because if that's the case, the true value Luka comes in 2025 when Rasul Douglas is a free agent, and then you have Benford and Elam on the outside, and perfect. And, people I've already seen that. Can the Bills afford 2 high paid young cornerbacks? Like, folks, let's get there when we get there. See if you could start first. I love it, man. I love the optimism of training camp.
How is Kaiir Elam under the umbrella of high? No, it's like, if you get in a situation where you want to still pay Rasul Douglas, right? You want to keep him there, and you're going to have to pay him a decent amount probably to still do so. And then Christian Benford, being younger, is going to, he's going to obviously draw a lot of money in his own right if he continues to project the way it is. If he becomes the best player or most impactful player on the Bills defense, we'll call it. I think best is a wild one, because let's say Von does get to 85% 2022. I think that's where you go, okay, well, that probably is still your best player on defense. Or Matt Milano, as you were highlighting. Terrell Bernard, let's not forget him. He had a pretty good year last year as well. It's one of those things where it's, if he is playing at that level, yes, you're going to have to pay him. But I like Kaiir Elam's almost like working out too well if he is playing as well as he is. It's like it took a couple years to progress. You found this absolute diamond in the rough later on in that draft that was able to patch over everything. And then he's going to come up. He's going to not cost you an arm and a leg at that point in time, even though he was a first round pick. You have the 5th year option in your holster if you realistically want to, but there's a realistic chance based on his limited game time that you don't have to pay him that 5th year option. And you could actually maybe work out, let's call it a bridge deal, a 3-year deal, manageable dollar amount that puts you in a great spot. He can feel good that he has a little bit more security, and you can feel good that you're basically locking up that other side boundary, that the leverage is on you more so than it's on Rasul when it comes to keeping him along. It's the corner situation for the Bills, I can't recall one that has worked out in such a most random way possible with a position group. If Kair's working out the way it sounds, like that's the most important figure here, and Christian Benford, of course, continues to be what he is, I mean, this has worked out in spades. This is incredible. And as you pointed out, it's one of the most important positions on the field every game. A boundary corner is a helpless position where you need your most supreme athletes, your most depended athletes on the field from a defensive perspective on every single snap. And if you found yourself in I bet you there has to be at least, just without any knowledge to this, there has to be at least 18 to 20 teams minimum that wish they were in the position at boundary corner that the Bills are currently, not only just for this year, but for projected years to come, because they really have tripped themselves up on a fantastic situation, both for the cap, for the future, and where they currently sit now. So it's a pretty interesting situation, to say the least.
Thanks for watching this clip from Bill's Chat. For the full episode, you can find the link in the description. While you're here, we would love it if you took the time to like and subscribe. That way you'll never miss when we upload new content to Bill's Chat on YouTube.